lines is in a main conference. You'll be hearing music shortly. When the music stops, that is your cue to start a conference. Please stand by. You are ready to start.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Bonjour. My name is Kevin Lamoureux, and I am the Member of Parliament for Winnipeg North. I'd like to thank you for joining us this morning for this very important initiative, or should I say announcement. I have with me on the line the Honourable David Lametti, Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada, Dr. Jennifer Frein, who is the Chief Executive Officer at New Directions, and also Cindy Chotchenko, Manager in Training Resources for Youth Program at New Directions. We'll have an opportunity to hear short opening remarks from each of the esteemed guests that we have. Then we will go to a question and answer over the telephone lines. As usual, we will go with one question and one follow-up. You can feel free to ask questions in either official language. And at this point, if I may, just to indicate that all young people, I believe, deserve the opportunity to grow and thrive, and want to thank New Directions for their focused, culturally sensitive care and support for young Indigenous people in Manitoba, particularly in projects like this one, which addresses people facing multiple vulnerabilities and barriers to success. New Directions for Children, Adults, and Families has a long historical tradition of doing phenomenal work here in the province of Manitoba, as it has set the foundations, many of the different social initiatives that have really impacted the lives of literally hundreds, going into thousands of Manitobans for well over now 100 years. So without further ado at this point, I would like to introduce Minister Lametti, who will say a few words. Minister.
Thank you, Kevin, for your introduction. Hello, bonjour. I'm pleased to be joining you this morning from my office in Ottawa, which sits on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. Really a pleasure to join Kevin Lamoureux this morning, and I really want to thank him in a very personal way before we begin. Kevin, as you know, is one of our anchors really in the House of Commons, and is someone who not only has mastered the procedure of the House of Commons, but also the content of so many different bills and other motions and that sort of thing in the House so well. So thank you. Very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Today we're taking steps, our government is taking steps to better protect and support Indigenous youth, particularly young women and girls. When we think about the building blocks to a happy and fulfilling life, there are some fundamentals: a safe and stable home, good education, and strong social support. When these elements are missing from an early age, it can be especially difficult for those youth to find and stay on a path that is right for them. In Manitoba, Indigenous children make up the vast majority of children in care, and within this group, more than 10% of those children have fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, or FASD. Children with FASD face challenges other children do not. Instead of stable and nurturing homes, they often move through several placements. That makes them less likely to receive a proper diagnosis and benefit from early intervention. In adolescence, these children may experience learning difficulties that can lead to stigmatization in school. approximately $587,000 over 4 years, from 2020 to 2023, to support the Empower Project, an incredible youth justice initiative provided by New Directions for children, youth, adults, and families in Winnipeg. The Empower Project aims to address the needs of Indigenous girls and young women who have been diagnosed with FASD and are referred through the youth justice system. The project builds on lessons learned from a previous program that operated from 2015 to 2018. The new Empower Project will provide intensive and individualized support, including through the evenings when support is most needed. It will include culturally informed substance abuse counseling, family and mental health support, as well as skill building, pro-social, and recreational activities. Funding for this project has been delivered through Justice Canada's Youth Justice Fund, which aims to encourage a more effective youth justice system responding to emerging youth justice issues and enable greater citizen and community participation. Je tiens à remercier toutes les personnes qui ont participé au projet Empower pour leur dévouement envers les jeunes femmes autochtones qu'elles aident à s'épanouir. And in particular, I want to thank Dr. Jennifer Frame and Cindy Shevchenko, who are here this morning with us and who are a critical part of this program. Our government remains committed to supporting Indigenous youth and providing increased access to justice for all. Together, we can help young people all reach their full potential. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Lametti, and for your kind words, and just your sense of commitment to all Canadians and providing the type of support that you do. At this point, what I'd like to do is now turn the floor over to Ms. Cindy Shevchenko.
Good morning. First off, I'd like to thank the Department of Justice and the federal government for trusting in the stewardship of funds to New Directions, specifically to the Empower Project. The funds provided will allow for approximately 4 years of service to youth who struggle with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder and are presently involved in the justice system. During the first 3 years of programming, we learned that for this particular individual, connection to their culture through an Indigenous lens and Indigenous staffing is essential for the personal growth and well-being of the individuals involved. Secondly, the lesson that we learned was that the hours of operation were specific to this group of population. So presently, the new program will operate in the afternoons, early evenings, and weekends. And this is when most of the individuals in this program require more intensive supports. Through activities, teaching, and discussions, both group and individual, the goal will be to increase a sense of attachment and therefore a willingness to grow and learn. Social functioning skills, mental health knowledge, both traditional and Western, as well as sexual health, will be the areas of our focus. An example would be for participants to attend a moon ceremony, which focuses on a woman's moon cycle and its teachings around that area. Defining success in the TAP program can be an exercise of discernment. The personal and social barriers preclude outcomes like full-time employment, post-secondary education, and promote even modified high school credit. We look for the incremental changes that sometimes are hard to see in the fast-paced lives of the individuals we support. The time when a participant is able to take their coffee cup to the kitchen without being asked, or a request to continue with a goal-setting plan to decrease drug usage is a moment of wholesome praise. On that note, again, I'd like to say thank you, and we are looking forward to the impact this funding will have on the young people we serve.
Thank you very much, Cindy. And I should have said in the introduction that you are, in fact, the manager of training and resources for youth programs at New Directions, and we very much appreciate you, Ms. Shevchenko, for joining us for today. At this point, I will ask the operator to take over to field questions and answers for a session. Thank you. We can take it over. Operator.
Thank you. Thank you. Merci. Please press star 1 at this time if you have a question. S'il vous plaît, appuyez sur étoile 1 maintenant pour poser une question. The first question, la première question
question is from Karina Roman from CBC News. Please go ahead. Your line is open. Votre ligne est ouverte.
Yes, hello there. I'm afraid my question is not regarding the announcement today. My question is for Minister Lametti. My first question, before my follow-up, is that my colleagues in our London bureau, went to see what's happening in Syria and saw quite a bit of misery of the Canadian women and children in the detention camps in Syria. Some of those women want Canada to take back the children, as you are well aware, and this is something that other countries in Europe are already doing or planning to do. And my question is, why can't Canada follow Europe's example, and what do we plan to do?
Thank you, Ms. Roman, for the question. Obviously, as a government, we're following the situation very carefully in Syria. You will know, and former Minister Champagne has said that we have no diplomatic presence in Syria. So that complicates anything we do. We have now repatriated a second child from Syria, but we do have, when we assess these situations, we also have to look at methods which don't put any Canadian diplomats or others at risk, at their own physical risk. So we're watching that situation very carefully, and I'll leave it to my colleague, Minister Garneau, and others in Cabinet to make announcements as we move forward.
Okay, thank you. My follow-up is a bit more of a legal question, so perhaps more in your basket. If an ISIS affiliate Canadian makes a confession before an acceptable party, would that make it easier for Canada to repatriate and prosecute?
Again, the evidentiary questions are obviously legal questions, and what I can say is that in any such situation, somebody will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. The other questions the other parts of the context are political questions, and as I've just said, we as a government we are following very carefully events in Syria.
Merci. La prochaine question, the next question is from Peggy Lam from CBC Manitoba. Please go ahead. Your line is open. Votre ligne est ouverte.
Hi there. This question is, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Perfect. This question is also for Minister Lametti. So just 20 minutes ago, the Canadian Civil Liberties Association and the Indigenous Bar Association is calling on the law societies in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba to remove the good character standing requirements as a part of the barring process. They say that this requirement limits and creates barriers for Indigenous legal professionals to serve in the Justice Department and to serve the communities that they need to serve, such as the Indigenous women and girls who you're talking about. So I'm wondering, what do you have to say to that call?
Well, again, this is, as you've just said, this is news. The law societies are independent, self-regulating bodies that are allowed to do so under provincial law. The regulation of the prevention of the to look at our systems, and this is true when I'm looking at criminal justice or the way that the federally appointed judges are appointed, for example, and try to eliminate things that inadvertently
Jennifer. Can you tell us a little bit more about specifically what the program would look like in terms of, for example, the age groups who you're hoping to serve and where in Manitoba the program will be set up in?
Sure. I think Cindy's probably in the best position to answer that question. Certainly, I know it's Winnipeg-based.
So I'll answer to that. The age group that we will be working with is age 12 to just under 18. It will be located in Winnipeg. It will be a very activity-based program, so it will be a lot of the stuff will be in the community with different activities. The connection will be with knowledge keepers, elders, as well as mentors in a case management to work with a wraparound service concept. Thank you.
Thank you. Once again, please press star 1 on your device's keypad for any question. De nouveau, n'hésitez pas à appuyer sur étoile 1 pour toute question. There are no questions registered at this time. Il n'y a pas de questions d'enregistrer pour le moment.
Okay, I think what we'll do, if there's no further questions, is that we'll leave it at that. If you do have further questions about today's announcement, please contact the Department of Justice, Media Relations at media@justice.gc.ca. Otherwise, thank you, Minister Lametti, for taking the time and being with us and making this wonderful announcement. And also Dr. Jennifer Frayne for your participation and for the fine work you do, Cindy. Very much appreciated. Have a great day, all. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Good job.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. The conference has now ended. Please disconnect your line at this time. We thank you for your participation. Merci. La conférence est maintenant terminée. Veuillez super accrocher vos lignes.
Well, that was meant to be kind of an interesting process in the sense that it was a press conference with a nice announcement for New Directions, an organization that has been around for many years, over 100 years actually. They have literally helped hundreds, going into thousands of people over the years, and the federal government has provided financial support so that they will be able to provide some ongoing programming to help Indigenous youth in particular. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you for tuning in, those that had watched. Thank you.